The first thought that I want to lift up as we think about this, before we can even fully understand the prayer, is we have to understand why this prayer is important, because now God is saying, I am willing to move from what I have given you to what you have created for me and make it home.
Thank you, Lord, for a new day. I just wanna say thanks to you, Lord.
And so as God says, I will now move into this new place and make it my home, this is huge. In fact, in chapter 6, we found out that the very fire of God rains down from heaven, that the glory of the Lord fills the temple. The very presence of God comes now into this thing that Solomon has created and built for God, that God has now made his home permanently amongst his people. And this is important. This is huge, because now the people know where to go. Listen to what God says. Not only will I make this my home, not only will you know that I am there, but there'll be times where home doesn't feel like home. There'll be times where things aren't flowing the way that you think they should be flowing. And that does not mean that I'm not still home or that this is not here, but that does mean that there's some work to do. As long as sin is all among you, as long as all of this is here, you always have this problem of what sin will do. And there are times where I have to go and shake you, because one of the most important things that I have for me is that you understand who I am. Watch this. So he says, then you do this prayer. Then if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and I'll restore their land. My eyes will be open, my ears attentive to every prayer made in this place. For I have chosen this temple and set it apart to be holy.
And I gotta say thanks to you for all that you do, for how you provide. Can I cast every care on you for this day?
And so then the question becomes, well, how do we make it home? How do we get back to this place that makes sense to us? And this is why now we start hearing so many other stories as the New Testament comes. Jesus in John chapter 4 is meeting with a Samaritan woman, and one of the main issues that they have is where's the place for worship? Why? Because once the temple had been burned down, people start to develop different places to worship. And Jesus tells to this woman, soon it will not matter. That the real God is a God of spirit. And the true worshipers will worship him in spirit and in truth. And the geographical location won't matter. Jesus lifts up, in 3 days, I'll tear this temple down. And they're always thinking that this is a physical temple. And Jesus is already making a distinction. Why? Because he recognizes that something is happening in the life of Israel. That as we think about this temple, we think about how God made his home, that then God comes and does something amazing. He changes the location of the temple. That the temple is no longer the building. But when Jesus comes, the very representation of all that Solomon built, the very representation of all that David wanted to do was no longer an edifice built of stones and of wood, but it is now that built of the human person. Which is why it's so important when we say that the very Spirit of God resides in us, because it's pointing us all the way back to the development of the temple. That when Jesus comes, he breaks open this notion of where God could be located, where God makes his home, and allows God to make his home with us.
Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day. We have to seize every moment.